This is Al. It's week 9. It's week 9. And we have way off to my left and your right, Gabby, Ojeda, Sagay, all the way in from Chicago. What did I call it today?
During this, some Midwestern,
some windy, drifty Midwestern city. We're on the South Side. Anyway, this has been a great day with you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
We did a poem talk. We did some ModPo videos, and you're the best. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Al. You're the
JS
best.
is here, but the mic is like a mile away. JS, come on.
Yes, I'm close now.
You like that? And then there's Emily Harnett, who has joined us because it's an 8:30, because Emily is very tied up during the day, almost literally tied up during the day. And so here you are, Emily.
Hey, Al. Nice to see you.
Hi. It's really good to see you. That's all you have to say?
No, you're right. Yeah, the days I am sort of in captivity, but I'm here with you all today.
Oh, my goodness. Everybody's freaking out. Emily Harnett is here. That's ridiculous. Sophia DeRose, hello. Hi.
I'm always here. So.
I'm always here. Okay. Oh, people have joined us.
Reliable.
Then there's Dave Poplar in Arizona, the home state of a team that is struggling, it seems, like whatever. And Allie Castleman, who's feeling a little under the weather and deeply disappointed Emily for not visiting. There's a little pouty lip there. Can you do the pouty lip again? Okay. We're sorry you're feeling under the weather, but you're here. And then there's Jason. Hi, Jason. Hello. Yes, and then Erica. Hi, Erica. And then, drum roll, please. Does anybody do that? Anna Strong Safford. You're muted. Talk to us.
I'm at a Zoom practice. I just forgot to mute myself before and then unmute myself. I need to warm up.
Show us Mom's Helper. Show us a little Mom's Helper.
All right. So I got stolen Halloween candy.
Okay.
And I have a big girl glass of wine.
When you say stolen, you mean like you grabbed it from the mitts of the children.
I mean, she's got a giant bag of candy from her first little trick-or-treating spree. And all she ate for dinner tonight was a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Oh.
So
Her
I need to do something.
Wait. You let your child have a Reese's for dinner? Anna, that's not your first glass of wine, I don't think.
No. Listen, 2 kids is...
Yeah, I know. I did it, and it's no good. It's no good. No good. And we have John Fadley here, who came. John, hi, John. Do we have a portable mic for John? You guys are not on top of things.
They are.
They are not on top of things. John Fadley is here from Singapore. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So Chicago is nothing.
No.
Because Singapore is far away. John, we are so happy that you're here. You're going to get a mic one of these days. And you joined us during the pandemic and have stayed around, and you formed a group of, here's a mic. Hi, John.
Hi, everyone.
Is the mic on?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It is.
I hope so, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, it's on.
John, since you're our audience tonight, you might as well hold on to that mic. So you found your pals. There are 6 of you now, and you meet every week for 90 minutes and talk about long poems. And
Right.
ModPo is not good with long poems for reasons that are obvious. Can you just quickly name a few of the long poems that your ModPo group has been talking about?
Yeah, so we started out this was an off-season thing. This is us coming off the regular season of ModPo.
Right,
and wondering,
your own slow po.
Right, that's right. And we started with an ordinary evening in New Haven.
Wallace Stevens, 1949.
Right. And we went into Ashbury and read Self-Portrait in a Convex Mirror.
And 3 poems.
3 poems. And then we read The Bridge.
The Bridge!
And then we did...
wow!
And then we did we just finished 4 quartets, and now we're doing of Being Numerous. Wow. So this is just really a group of people who just don't mind taking a long time.
Poems, right?
Yeah. And it's really just a group of friends who range between, say, I'm in my mid-50s. Our youngin is in his mid-30s.
Matt Lutwin from Pittsburgh, we know him.
And then Will Strindberg is...
And Will is 90.
90.
And Will's been around ModPo since he was 80. That's really cool, John. Thank you.
Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. Just a couple of announcements, then we're going to get started with a round of favorite Weeknight 9 poems. Mandana Chaffa has interviewed Lydia Davis, a Week 8 prose writer that we jammed into with the Week 8 language people because of her affiliation with them. And Mandana's interview is in the current issue of the Brooklyn Rail. It's an interview with Lydia. It's terrific. I highly recommend it. Congratulations, Mandana. I want to remind everybody that we have 2 more webcasts left. We have our Week 10 webcast next Wednesday. Anybody know what time it will be?
12.
Noon. Noon? Really? Okay. And then we have our Final Words webcast on Monday. Monday. It's different. Monday, November 13th at noon also. And that's one we want everybody to come to. So get in your cars, gas up your cars, or electrify your cars and get to Philly and be with us. For the Week 10 webcast, Erica Baum will be joining us. I don't think here in person, but I think by Zoom. So we're very excited. A couple other announcements. Lainey and Kate are in Providence, Rhode Island, and they're not joining us tonight. They're part of a memorial gathering to celebrate the poetry, the editing, and the publishing of Keith Waldrop. And Rosemarie, of course, is a Week 10 poet. And Keith, the late Keith Waldrop, much missed and mourned. And he was key with Rosemarie to create Burning Deck Press, which has been really, really important to many of the poets we study. And finally, assignment number 4 is this week. You do a Mozastic or you follow one of Bernadette's writing experiments. The number is 610-616-3208, 610-616-3208. You can Skype us at ModPoPen. Who wants to cover the YouTube chat?
I can do it.
All right, Sophia and Dave, would you keep an eye on the forum thread? Yeah, okay, Dave, thank you. All right, so we're going to go around and we're going to collect favorite Week 9 poem, favorite at the moment. So let's start with JS, and Emily will be next.
Yeah.
Emily's got to look at the Week 9 poem.
I think for me this week it was Mac Lowe's A Vocabulary for Peter in a Scream More. And I think it was just touching on, I have a long history with art practice, performance, etc. And I love a performance script. I love a sort of visual performance script or, notation for performance. And so the combination of the performance instructions with the visual piece really did it for me. Yeah.
And you looked at all those materials that we found that we've collected. Mm-hmm. And it's quite something. Okay, cool. We might even listen to that at some point. All right. So Emily is next and Gabby is on deck.
So just looking at these quickly, I remember loving the writing experiments, Bernadette Mayer, and I like that they're both procedural. They're sort of approachable. Anyone can implement them, but still experimental and fun at the same time.
Very cool. Do you ever teach that wildly? Do you ever have your students write experimental constraint things?
Every now and again to torture them. Every now and again inflict a little bit of Gertrude Stein on them.
Oh, nice.
And,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
They can hang.
All right. Thank you, Emily. Gabby, followed by Dave.
Yeah, I think for me this week, it just feels unavoidable to not talk about Jenna Osmond's dropping leaflets like that, just with the attacks in Palestine, and actually there was leaflets in the news and the dropping of leaflets very prominently in the news, and I just immediately about a week or so ago I was I thought of that poem, and then I've just been reading it this week, and it's been good to reflect with.
It's a 9/11, specifically a post 9/11 poem. It was first written for and delivered here in this room, and so many comparisons domestically, not in the Middle East. Of course, that is a true war. That is a horrific military thing. But in the United States, it's a rhetorical fuss, right? I mean, largely speaking. And so the question of where you stood after 9/11, what statements were made and what rushes to judgment and all that stuff is very similar. So dropping leaflets is, good. Thank you. Dave, followed by Sophia.
I'm picking a poem from Modco Plus, which is Making Butter by a guy named Jason Zuzga.
Oh, wonderful.
It's great, and there's some great videos, him reading at the Kelly Writers House, and a video of him doing what became the poem. So it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And if you have not seen Jason perform such things, you really, there's good YouTube videos out there, and Jason often in teaching. I think Making Butter was partly a teaching thing, wasn't it, Jason? Didn't you do that with your students?
No, the teaching thing is another dairy product. It's whipped, usually.
Oh, that's right, whipped cream. Which that's quite a thing. I love that. Okay, so Sophia followed by Anna.
I think I have to go with Not a Cage by Joan Ortalic this week. I just love the idea that if everyone followed that same procedure, it would look so different given the context of our lives and what we surround ourselves with. Yeah. And I just love it.
Not a Cage. Wonderful. Anna, are you rusty? Not as rusty as Emily, probably, but...
Jesus, catching strays.
No, I'm extremely rusty. I was also thinking a lot about dropping leaflets this week, and also big love for the Bernadette Mayer writing experiments, with which I routinely torture my high school students. But
you do?
Yeah, but I love them very much.
Because they probably completely respect and adore you, they probably tolerate this, but do any of them rebel? Do they rebel?
Yes, and sometimes that's the most productive conversation of all.
Yeah. And that's how Emily teaches as well. Putting down rebellion.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I didn't put somebody on deck, but it's got to be Allie, followed by Erica.
I'm going to point people to some of the John Cage material in ModPo Plus, particularly his discussion of making English less understandable as a way of demilitarizing language.
Do you have that text in front of you, or can you get it? Will you read it for us?
Sure. I let it be known to my friends and even strangers as I was wandering around the country that what was interesting me was making English less understandable. Because when it's understandable, well, people control one another and poetry disappears. And as I was talking with my friend, as I was talking with my friend Norman O'Brown, he said syntax, which is what makes things understandable, is the arrangement of the army. So what we're doing when we make language ununderstandable is we're demilitarizing it so that we can do our living.
Wonderful. Thank you. Erica, followed by Jason.
I'm also thinking a lot about dropping leaflets, although I'm tempted to say Not a Cage. And just a quick plug, I got this in the mail today, which is a new book by Jenna Osmond.
Wow,
which is called A Very Large Array Selected Poems. So a plug for this amazing book.
Wow. That's very exciting. Thank you. And Jason, favorite poem?
I'm going to go with Not a Cage as well. And in part because what you just reminded me of is something that, and what that poem reminds me of is this activity that my friend, the poet Brian Blanchfield, and I used to do when we were hanging out. And then at a reading series in Tucson that was held in a bookstore when I was doing my MFA at University of Arizona. I would get everybody at the reading to grab a book off the shelf and to just randomly turn to a page, and then we would all, everyone would have to read the first thing they saw. And it kind of created and that kind of like sampling of, you know, from the vast array of everything possible in print. It reminds me of that poem. Like, there's the experience of reading it as a text on the screen or the page, and then there's also which makes me think, let's do this at my office hours on Friday. You know, there's an experience of actually using that poem, Not a Cage, as not only a finished work, but as a model, like as an instructional text on how this can always be done in all sorts of different circumstances.
Yeah. No, I think it's both of those things. It's the result of a constraint and also a prompt for others. Right. Yeah. John, you have a mic. Do you want to add a favorite from week 9? You're so far into ModPo Plus. I bet you have some ideas.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna, I guess, give my vote to dropping leaflets. I mean, I just pulled it up on my phone, and just some great lines, like the first time in history line. Yeah. You know, and yes, definitely resonances with some of the terrible things that are going on now in the Middle East. Yeah.
Thank you, John. Okay, we've got like 3 or 4 votes for Not a Cage, so it seems like maybe we should talk about Not a Cage. What I think I'm going to do, I'm going to put the number out again, 610-616-3208. Please give a call. Chris is looking forward to talking with you. And I am going to play for us Not a Cage, Joan Rotalick. And here it is.
The next thing that I'm going to read is a poem dedicated to John Cage, which is called Not a Cage, which is based on first and last lines from books that I was discarding or selling or giving away. I think as a way of assuaging my guilt for not having read them. I collected the beginnings and the endings. Scientific, sorry, I have 2 copies of this book here. It's not all fitting. Scientific inquiry, seen in a very broad perspective, may see foot 1957, also Wettermark 1906, chapter 13. To man seek, the world is twofold, in accordance with that witness is now or in the future. It wasn't until the waitress brought her Benedictine and she, Villandry, les douves, Parazé, le rideau, mine, yours, Cynthia, not a building, this earth, not a cage, the artist, disciple, abundant, multiple, restless, a forgery, Opus, Loonus, Bellini, we named you. I thought the earth is possible. I could not tell to make live and conscious history in common and wake. You find yourself among. And wake up deep in the fruit. Did you get the money we sent? I smell fire at full volume, stage dark. 1, Russia, 1927, God, say your prayers. You were begotten in a vague war, sidelong into your brain. In letter 3 and 4, as earlier, the narrator is North Dakota, Portugal, Moorhead, Minnesota. The lights go down, the curtain opens. The first thing we gun, Veronica wrote, the end, Wittgenstein. Tomorrow she would be in America. Over 40 years ago, a tense, cunningly moving tale by the then he moved on, and I went close behind. Interviewers. What drew a woman from Ohio to study in Tübingen? American readers with this issue, former subscribers to Marxist perspectives. The shadow of the coup continues to hover over Spain. In the ordinary way of summer, girls were singing like a saguaro cactus from which any desert wayfarer can draw, as is Mr. Fox, but in literature. 25 years have gone by. Ya sé, dijeron las cosas más oscuras. The most obscure things have already been said.
I'm going to ask Emily, Gabby, Anna, and Erica to comment in any way they like on what we just heard. I'm also going to ask Sophia, before we get started, to quote a few people in the chat, the YouTube chat, may be relevant to this or maybe not.
Okay. Well, there's lots of people who are happy that Anna and Emily are joining us tonight.
What do they say about that?
Anna, Emily. That's what they're saying. Cool seeing Emily now. We have Denny saying we have to fight to demilitarize language, which I agree with. We have some people chiming in about their favorite poems. Maddie Ophelia said, my favorite poem of the week is whatever the online Mesostic generator makes out of whatever text I put into it that day.
Yes, I've been putting
which I really
newspaper
like.
articles into that.
Let's see, what else? Laura Littman said, I already vibed to Mayer big time, but I was doing a lot of her experiments without knowing it, if that makes sense. Which I really loved.
Laura Lippman, superstar, who was here last week.
Yeah.
And didn't even tell us that she basically writes a novel a year. I mean, she's a very accomplished person.
Yeah, so we just have a lot of support for Emily and Anna.
All right, great. So we're going to go to Emily, Gabby, Anna, and Erica in that order. Emily, any thoughts on what Joan was doing there? I mean, you never discard books.
Yeah, who would? So yeah, I like her cute sort of self-effacing line there about the origin of the poem. And it struck me that it's a sort of beautiful thing to take the endings of books and turn them into the beginning of something, of a new work. And that sort of hopefulness, that sort of orientation towards the beginning of things feels like it's in tension with the contents of the lines themselves, which seem in many places to be referring to all sorts of catastrophes and crisis. And yet, nonetheless, the fact that it's starting over and over again and that these sort of myriad beginnings are drawn from the final lines, it feels hopeful despite that catastrophe.
Emily, it's kind of, if you and I were to go over to your apartment and just pick out books you don't need anymore and put them out on the street and then grab lines, first and last lines. And it turned out that there were lots of disasters. One could draw probably an incorrect conclusion about the books you wanted to get rid of. So there really is no such thing as non-meaning, because she's getting rid of a certain number of books, and the language of those books tells us something about what she is discarding. Yeah? So there's no such thing as accident. This week 9 is kind of a misnomer. It all means stuff. How you do? Is that good? You like that?
Yeah. 10 out of 10, Al. Good work.
Thank you. Gabby, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the last couple lines, which are the same translated. And I'm thinking about that cliche of like, oh, everything worth saying has already been said or whatever, which is something people say to put down saying anything or making anything. But I actually think this poem is maybe taking that as like a good, that the idea that everything has already been said is a sort of like useful one from which to do something productive. I don't know if I wanted to say invent, but that feels like against the ethos of the whole thing. But a sort of productive position.
The last line is random, not random.
Yes.
It's the last line of one of the books she discarded. The most obscure things have already been said. Mm-hmm. If that were intentional, what would it mean? In a week 9 sense. If that was an intentional thing, a line you wrote at the end of a poem that you intended, what would it mean? This is a straight...
It would be like your sort of thematic landing point. You're sort of like, hey, here's my message or whatever.
And what would that message be? The most obscure things have already been said. Isn't that a paradox?
Yeah, I think so.
How could it be obscure if it's been said so often?
Right. I think it means something like, I don't know, for me that would be a very pessimistic line to end on insofar as saying like, even that which we would think of as like obscure, or that which would require us to get away from the common has already been done. Like it almost seems like it locks you out of thought or something.
Obscurity, been there, done that.
Yeah, like if somebody wrote that in a very like true intentional way, I'd be a bit like, oh gosh, like that's quite poo-pooing or something.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you, Anna, followed by Erica.
I am gonna see if my creaky, chronically sleep deprived brain can do this. But I was looking at the forums, and I really love this question or comment from Suzanne Miller that's right up at the top. Wondering, why are we suddenly talking about beauty this week? Like, we didn't really concern ourselves with beauty until now, or the beauty, I guess, in terms of like aesthetics, maybe, or aesthetic beauty. And like suddenly we're all like so excited when something like quote unquote beautiful happens in these poems. And I really, really, really love that question as an entry point, kind of like into Not a Cage, or even into something like Ray Armantrout's poem The Way from way back in week 2. Thinking about the sort of beauty in the accidental, the beauty that occurs when something seemingly unintentional has happened, and how that often strikes us as perhaps like kind of more beautiful than the thing that you like are willing into existence, the thing that you so want to turn out beautifully, right? Like the vision you have in your head, the thing that you're trying so desperately to execute, isn't it actually oddly more satisfying when you get these moments in the poem, such as one of my favorite moments, sort of towards the bottom half. In letters 3 and 4, as earlier, the narrator is North Dakota, Portugal, Moorhead, Minnesota. The lights go down, the curtain opens. The first thing
it's beautiful.
Right? How can you not celebrate that as like, so beautiful?
What's the essence of Suzanne's concern? Because she's referring, I think, to the very original video that we did way back in 2012.
Yeah.
When we were doing feather likeness of the Justice Chair. I'm sorry, I can't. Dave, is that the title? It's a Jackson McClough rewrite of Gertrude Stein's using a computer-based chance operation machine, and I remember I was very moved. Of course, we were all like giddy because we'd made hours and hours and hours of these videos, and we were goofy. But I remember being
That was the giggles day. That was the day we all got the giggles.
Yes, that's right. I remember it. I think Allie like spit out her soda through her nose or something like that. But anyway, and then we got to this point where McClough was saying something utterly beautiful, but he was saying it accidentally, and we got very excited for the very reasons you're saying. And so I know Suzanne watches, because Suzanne is like all over everything, and Suzanne has created a thread called Please Make It Stop, which is a dissonant and dissenting response to the vocabulary for Peter Innisfree Moore. And there's been a great conversation. You go to the thread in week 9 for vocabulary Peter Innisfree Moore, and you'll see Kat McCready, Laura Lipman, Jim Lynch, Janet P., a whole bunch of other people working with Suzanne to explain what you just did. So Anna, back to you. Why, again, in short, is it so much more remarkable when it's not, John Hollander or Robert Frost saying something beautiful because they just spent a month figuring out how beautiful a line could be, but it's rather Jackson McClough using a computer program to make something beautiful? Why is the latter more powerful?
Well, I don't know. What's more fun? Like the Halloween costume that you put together through like the random pants and the funny socks and like the hat and like the little felt ears that you can make and stitch to a hat, or like the perfect Halloween costume that you buy from the Spirit Halloween store.
That is the analogy to end all analogies for week 9. It's a good thing week 9 coincides with Halloween.
Yeah,
I love that. Okay. Thank you. We're going to go to Erica, who is deeply, deeply involved in the Cagean qualities of Joan Retallack and that whole thing. So I give you the floor, Erica. I know you have something to say.
Oh man, I have. I feel like I need to do a disclaimer. I've had such a long day, so I'm hoping that I'm a little bit coherent. But listening to Joan, I was struck by, and this is related to what Anna was just saying, by the delight or like the play in the work. And so I mean, it's operating on so many different levels, and and she's engaged in this project of collaging that's also chance. But there's like a reverie and just like I imagine that one is having a good time constructing a poem like this as well as reading one. So I'm kind of thinking about what Joan would call serious play.
Serious play. Can you spell out or define serious play? You've mentioned it a number of times this season, and I think it's important. This is the moment. Week 9 is all about serious play. Can you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it has a lot to do with, in the context of week 9, even if for somebody like Joan, who's working procedurally or doing chance-based compositional processes, there still there's an intention. So there's a reason behind why one is embarking upon this sort of poetic voyage. So it's not just playing with language and having a good time. There's something dire, and it's a serious investigation at the same moment.
Yes. Beautiful. I'm going to warn J.S., Dave, Sophia, Allie, and Jason, and John in a minute. I'm going to ask you all to find the text of Bernadette's writing experiments and to pick one that you want to throw out on the table because you love it so much and maybe explain it briefly. And while you guys are all preparing, I'm also going to ask Dave first to go to the forum thread, the webcast thread, and pick out a question or comment. And Sophia, who's now got to do 2 things at once, to tell us what's going on in the YouTube chat. And I want to remind everybody that Chris is waiting for a call. He's very lonely right now. 610-616-3208. You can Skype to Modpo Pen. Okay. Dave, can you, what's happening? Is there anything going on there?
Yeah, I mean, Anna mentioned Suzanne Miller's really good question. Suzanne Miller also wrote something else. She said that when she reads Bernadette Mayer's experiments, she said, I thought that the only way to deal with the plethora of choices is to use a chance operation. When faced with choice paralysis, call in definite randomness.
Nice.
I thought that was cool.
That's good. Thank you. Sophia, what's going on with the chat? Everybody's still raving about Anna and Emily?
Well, yes. Now they're raving about Anna's analogy to Halloween costumes. And I will say, having seen your kids' Halloween costumes on Instagram, they were adorable.
Yeah, what happened? What happened there, Anna?
They were cute.
Your daughter took over the costuming.
She did. So she got the, perfect purchased Cinderella outfit because I can't make a Cinderella dress. But like she loves dress up. That's what she wanted. And so for my 2-month-old son, I gave him some brown footy pajamas and I sewed 2 felt ears to a beanie. And he was a mouse.
He looks so cute.
Very mouse-like. Nice. Yeah, that's great. Sophia, continue.
So on top of the comments about the analogy, we have Laura Littman again said, having introduced randomness, I'm going to go in a very different direction. I think we have a tendency to revere the creative process, and we are unnerved by anything that seems impure, which I think is very interesting.
Totally right.
And then there's the conversation about randomness and this idea that uniformity can sometimes be unsettling or alarming. Order can be accidental. L. Nelson said, order can be accidental, and the mind or brain loves to recognize patterns even when they aren't there. So we have a conversation about randomness and order going on.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. These people are cool. Okay. JS, with Dave on deck, a writing experiment that you think you would like everybody to do and yourself too.
Yeah, one for me is write taking off from visual projections, whether mental or mechanical, without thought to the word in the ordinary sense, no craft. In particular, because I'm just really interested in kind of visual verbal translations, and this is maybe also to plug the Slowpoke class I'm probably teaching next semester.
It hasn't been confirmed yet?
Well, I sent my little description to Lainey earlier today.
Okay. Tell us what it is.
But it's on Renee Gladman's Plans for Sentences.
Oh, great.
Which is, translating between the visual and the verbal. And so, yeah, I'm very interested in, when words do feel imagey or imagistic even, and when they, escape visual translation.
Marvelous. Gabby, JS is quite an addition to the ModPo team, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's very exciting. Thank you, JS. We're going to turn to Dave, and Sophia's on deck. Dave, a writing experiment?
Find the poems you think are the worst poems ever written, either by your own self or other poets. Study them, then write a bad poem.
Why do you like that, Dave?
Well, I think learning what you don't like is such a great way to learn what you like. I mean, I was an assistant poetry editor for a journal briefly, and I got to go through the slush pile, which is just all the submissions that are sent, and most of them are not awesome. And the more you read those, the more you can get a feel for what really is awesome. And also, Ira Glass has a little monologue on creativity and how when you start out trying to do something creative, you can recognize that what you're doing is bad. It's not good. But you can't figure out how exactly to make it good. And the process of doing that is working through and recognizing the badness, not getting frustrated by it, but just working through it. And focusing on bad poems is a great exercise, I think.
Very cool. I think a variant on that might be get a bad poem and do some stuff to make it good, in quotes, and to see where it goes from, in your judgment, bad to good. And then, of course, in a Cagean sense, you won't even know where that line is.
Or get a good poem and do things to it to make it bad. Add some cliches.
Now that Bernadette would like, yeah. Okay. Sophia is going to introduce one, and then by that point, we might be introducing someone on the phone. Sophia?
Okay. I like the experiment that says attempt writing in a state of mind that seems least congenial.
Congenial, yes.
Because I don't know. As a writer, I feel like my least favorite thing to do is write because I work 2 jobs. I just feel like I'm so busy and tired all the time. And so I'm always in a state of mind where writing seems like the most taxing thing in the world. And I still do it and it still turns out okay.
Turns out better than okay from what I've seen. That's great. Okay, that's very good. It's partly a motivation thing. Bernadette was really, really good at motivating people to just write. That's very good. Chris, we have someone on the phone.
We do indeed. Our friend Mandana is on the line.
Oh, Mandana.
Yes.
Mandana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Al. Can you hear me?
I can. Congratulations on the Lydia Davis interview, the Brooklyn Rail. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We're very excited for you.
She's amazing.
Now, you had something else to do.
I met her at Kelly Writer's house.
I know. She was a Writer's House fellow. Yeah. You had other things to do tonight, but you decided to join us.
Well, I finished my, I was moderating a panel, a Zoom one, and then I hung up, and once I hung up, I joined your call. Of course.
That's wild. Mandana, what we're doing right now is we're going into Bernadette's writing experiment. So we'd like you to join the party. And while I think next would be Allie, while Allie's offering one, maybe you'll look up one, and I'll come back to you, and you'll tell us about it. Does that sound okay?
Sounds
good. Okay. So
sounds
we're going to
terrific. Hi, Allie.
Hi, Mandana.
So Allie's going to go next, and then Mandana.
I like rewrite someone else's writing, experiment with theft and plagiarism. Because I think it relates to what Dave was saying in terms of figuring out what you do and do like, I think that would be equally interesting to experiment with theft and plagiarizing, something that you admire intensely and can't imagine how anyone wrote it, and also something that you really don't like and yet is considered good, and just kind of like play around with that. But I think if plagiarism is involved in a prompt or assignment that you're giving yourself, it automatically frees you from the expectation that like anything is going to come of this that is like productive, or that you can publish, or that like is good in like a sense. And that just frees you up to do a lot of just like intellectual work, divorced from an expectation that it needs to like be something attached to you.
Hey, Allie, is there a change? Has there been a change in attitudes toward plagiarism as a creative act?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if I can answer that question. Like, can you narrow that a bit? In what sphere?
I don't know. John's going to add something, then we'll come back to you. John?
Yeah, so I kind of wonder about artificial intelligence. So, you know, when you look at all the stuff, including poetry, that artificial intelligence can generate, I mean, is that plagiarism? Is it, how real is it? How real is any of this stuff, right? So that kind of, I think, highlights the, you know, what does it mean to plagiarize someone else? You know, what does it mean to even, one of the other prompts, the one that I thought was interesting, was basically almost plagiarizing yourself, like editing down your own work, you know, in some rules-based way.
Yeah.
And the analogy that makes sense for me is actually nature, where words are almost like elements in nature. Like when you look at a landscape, it was formed by some natural rules, right? And it's got basic components in it. If you use words as your basic component and you apply a rule, you're creating just like nature is. You're not necessarily being original, you're not plagiarizing, but you're just sort of creating.
That's beautiful. The radical view of this is something that was somewhere in the colloquy that Anna and I had that led to her amazing Halloween analogy. And I mentioned John Hollander or Robert Frost. There is a radical view. It's a view that some people at this table, maybe all of us, would hold, which is that by doing the thing that poets do, John Hollander and Robert Frost were actually being least original. And by using a computer-generated or chance-based rearrangement of words that were already out there, or rewriting Gertrude Stein using a computer, you actually are being more creative and more original. Because the process of Hollander writing a nice iambic line is radically unoriginal. It's like the moralism of Anna saying, oh, well, we had to get a Cinderella costume, which you got wholesale. That is plagiarism. And what the little infant wore was originality and creativity. Oh. Does that hurt?
Picking on little kids.
Picking on little kids. Sorry.
Plagiarism.
Mandana, do you have one of the experiments? And after Mandana will be Jason.
Yes, I do. But just based on what you're saying right now, I'm not asking anyone to answer this, but you're making me think about, well, what is poetry? I don't want to say supposed, but what is poetry doing? Is it for the writer to express themselves, or is it for it to have an impact upon others? And I would suggest
right?
that if it's to have and if it's the latter, then the more open, the better.
Yes.
The more open, the better, because you're allowing breath and space for the reader to sit with what you're writing. So there are two, because, if you say one, I'm going to give you two. There are two, but they're very related to each other. One is to systematically eliminate the use of certain kinds of words or phrases from a piece of writing, like adjectives, adverbs, whatever. And then the second, but I kind of like the language of this more, is systematically derange the language. Write a work consisting only of prepositional phrases, or add a gerund to every line of an already existing work. And I love that because with English as my second language, there was a bit of derangement to it. Certain languages pedestal nouns more than verbs, certain pedestal verbs or adjectives more than nouns. And that I love the fact that in the English language, I don't know if Bernadette ever wrote in any other language, she had a translator's heart, a director's heart, the same way a director might direct Hamlet 15 different ways. That's why you can always have revivals of Hamlet. So beyond being a poet, I think she was a director in a lot of ways when it came to language. Just change it up.
Yes, lovely. Thank you, Mandana. Thanks for calling. Thanks for rushing away.
Have a good night, all of you. Great to see you all.
Yes, and thanks for the great interview published in the Brooklyn Rail.
Have a great evening, everybody.
All right, thanks.
See you later.
Lots of love. 610-616-3208. We're going to turn to Jason in a second, but I'm going to ask Gabby, JS, Emily, and Sophia to do a lightning round response to the word derange. Okay? Derange. So derange, Bernadette meant mix things up, rearrange. But it is a very strong word with implications of quote-unquote sanity. And in relation to week 9, sanity is at issue. Mm-hmm. So lightning round, just riff on derange. Gabby.
Like other meanings for it.
Yeah, or what do you think it...
Make mad.
Make mad. Okay, love it. JS?
I also had make mad, and now I can't think of anything else.
But that's not original now, sorry.
Yeah.
The most obscure things have already been said.
I think also... I mean, this is really just riffing on it, but like setting free chickens on a range, like deranging.
Oh man, Jay,
we've gone mad.
You are out of this world. That's great, Emily. Top that.
Impossible. No, I'm just thinking of the way the sort of behaviors that it's attached to. It's I think attached to bizarre behaviors, and often I'm thinking sort of in popular and casual contexts, like sort of intentional bizarre behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Sophia?
Well, I can't top chickens, but I'm thinking about what is necessary as a maypole of recognized normality. Like deranged has to have some sort of counterpart, and that isn't necessarily the same for everyone, right?
Yeah. I'll just add my thought and we'll turn to Jason for another writing experiment. I mean, derange really means rearrange. That's literally what Bernadette meant. But derange has that incredible pregnancy about, like, it's like so close to what we determine is not normal. And this is something that Bernadette played with. And of course, in the 1870s, a couple of young French poets talked about the derangement of the senses, which, the beginning of modernism was really just like, whatever smells good, maybe it should smell shitty. Whatever looks beautiful, this is the Williams thing. It's early spring, it's March, and there's like pulpy little growths coming up in spring and all, and it's not beautiful, and it's not the American Beauty rose. It's just this birthing that takes place, and it's normally thought of as ugly, but in fact it is the creation, it is the rebirth, it is vernal, it is everything. And that tradition goes all the way up through, and that's derangement. Derangement of values, a reversal. John, quickly, and then we'll go to Jason.
So in math, a derangement is a permutation of the elements in a range so that none of them is in their original position. So
Wait, say that again.
So math has ranges, right? Ranges of numbers. Yeah. So a deranging of a number is also, according to Wiki, where you basically take everything in a set of numbers and you take it out of its original position.
I love that. John, where have you been? You've been in Singapore. You need to quit this ridiculous law job of yours soon and come join us in Poetry Land. And bring your...
Pull a Dave Poplar and bail on the law.
Yeah, Dave, what do you think? Should John quit now?
Yeah, there's no time like the present to quit the law.
Dave, how old were you when you quit the law?
Jesus. I was spry and young. I guess it was 10, 12 years ago, something like that, 10 years ago.
That's when you were in my class, in this class.
I was transitioning out of my class when I took Monpo in person, English 88, yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Jason, so you're hitting cleanup. Can you pick a fun experiment that you would actually like to do?
Yeah, well, like, give me all this time to meander in my brain. I'm gonna pull together a bunch of weird stuff. So, the thing that came to mind is, as I'm reading through the list, is the etymological work experiment, and which I'll just read a little bit of this. It's kind of down a ways in the list of experiments. Experiment with investigating the etymologies of all words that interest you, including your own name. Approaches to etymologies. Take a work you've already written. Look up the etymological meanings of every word. Study the history of the words. Rewrite the work on the basis of the information found out. Another approach, build poems and writings from the etymological families based on Indo-European language constructs. For example, the BHEL family, bulge, bowl, belly, boulder, billow, ball, balloon, and I just wanted the opportunity to say those B words out loud.
Say them again. Jason, say them again.
Bulge, and I don't know how to pronounce BHEL.
BHEL?
Yeah, that's what she has here, and it's in all caps.
JS is looking it up.
Okay, great. Bulge, bowl, belly, boulder, billow, ball, balloon.
And they're etymologically related or sonically related?
They are, yeah. So here's my little story. So I was looking at this, and then I was looking at this thing that I just put up on the wall like a couple days ago, which is it is a comprehensive
Our World Language Families, Old World.
Yeah, so this is the kind of evolutionary history of a whole bunch of languages.
Very cool.
Going from Indo-European up here and going there, so we can see like the current density of language speakers. But the thing is the I mean, in a way, this is like an evolutionary tree. Like it's and so I had two thoughts. One is in a class I had taught by Keith Waldrop in college.
Oh wow, Keith.
Yeah.
Wait, were you at Brown?
Taught a class that was just on Auden.
Keith Waldrop taught Auden?
Yeah, listen, wait, let me tell you the three.
I think Gabby would have signed up for that class.
It was, well, I wanted to take a class with Keith, and then I did an independent study with him, and it was on scientific.
Wow.
Science and poetry. It was amazing. Because he originally was going to be a doctor and went to medical school.
That's right. He was in the army, too.
Yeah, he's just...
In Germany after
Anyway,
World War
so
II.
Keith Waldrop is not somebody in ModPo, but everybody who's listening, he is an amazing guy, and is an incredible poet. Husband of Rosemary Waldrop, who we do encounter. He was teaching class on Auden, Marion Moore, and T.S. Eliot.
Oh my gosh.
And I wrote a paper which was just doing etymological research on 2 lines from Eliot's 4 quartets, which were garlic and sapphire in the mud, clot the bedded axle tree. And
wait, did Eliot really write those lines?
Yeah.
Can you repeat them?
Garlic and sapphire in the mud, clot the bedded axle tree.
Time out. Gabby, what do you think? Overwritten?
No, I like it. I don't know.
All right, can you find it?
Yeah, I mean, Jason's not lying. It is lines from 4 quartets.
Yeah, which
Garlic and sapphires in the mud, clawed the bedded axle tree.
What the hell? What is he doing?
I don't.
Oh,
it's section
read
2.
the paper.
And Jason wrote a whole paper. Jason, will you please send that paper to all of us?
First of the 4 quartets.
Well, I wrote it in my junior year of college.
I wish I'd known you then.
I wish I'd known me then.
Oh, nice.
Okay, I'm gonna.
What I mean is, I wasn't the same. I was a frightened guy, but I did like. But what I'm saying is, writing that paper was the most important poetry experience I ever had.
Wow.
It blew open language to me, and I just spent a month with the OED, going deeper and deeper into those.
I can imagine
that sequence of words.
Yes.
And it was like watching the universe expand into itself.
I just want to say, Jason, that this cornucopia like comment that you've just made, which is so fabulous, managed to memorialize Keith, who's recently deceased and is being memorialized on this very night up in Providence, and managed to get us into connection with the density of sonically related, etymologically related language trees. And just, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing, and you're a beautiful thing. And Elliot is, I don't know what to do with Elliot.
Did you know Ruth Reichel, the American chef, named her biography Garlic and Sapphires? Sorry, these are things I'm learning.
There you go.
As I'm searching.
The influence of Elliot. We're going to get hate mail.
Right.
Why didn't you? Okay. So I want to introduce the question of autocorrect, just to get a little conversation going about autocorrect in relation to week 9. But before I do, will you tell us you're looking at me like, why are you doing autocorrect?
You just say it funny.
I say it funny? Autocorrect? How do you say it?
Autocorrect. You're like placing an emphasis on. Never mind. We have some comments
It's
about
a generational problem. I think.
Mona said something very funny, and she in conversation with this derange thread, and she said, "What are you cooking on derange?" Which I loved.
Ha ha, Mona. Ha ha.
And then that started a whole conversation about puns, honestly.
It's funny how they digress, these people.
I love it.
I mean, have you seen our conversation? We're talking about garlic and sapphire.
I thought that was great. Yes, I forgot to mention it. In the cornucopia was Elliot, which is really quite... And Auden. Anyway.
Something Ollie brought up was a paradox. How can we write poetry to positively influence others if we are uncertain of the semi-random constructs that pop out of the machine of aleatory poetry?
Do you remember Ollie calling in toward the beginning of the year and reading us some Rumi, I think?
Yeah, he got a book too.
He what?
Got a book. Sent him a book.
Oh, yes, he got a book.
So that was a big question, which sparked some more conversation.
Great.
Yeah.
Love these guys. Okay. Autocorrect. Everybody is going to get a shot at autocorrect.
Okay.
I don't know where we're going with this, but autocorrect. Sorry, autocorrect. Autocorrect. Anyway, whatever that thing is, this is an annoying but also possibility-making part of our lives that really wasn't a thing when we created Week 9 back in 2012. It really wasn't. And now it is. And it's just it's a possibility. And I would love for us to each of us just riff a little bit on the possibilities of that and its relationship to the whole problem of error and whether you correct errors or whether you leave errors. You know where I'm going with this. And to get us started, Zach, I want to celebrate Sophia Naz's new book, Bark Archipelago, which I just received a copy of from Sophia. And she has one thing she did was she sent me, Zach,
that's cool,
with much affection, gratitude, and a sprig of lemon verbena from the garden in Glen Ellen, California, which is a town I've been to, a very tiny little town. And so, anyway... okay, so we have a poem in here. I'll just read it as a way of getting started, and now I've lost it. Gosh. I had a marker for it. Bear with me, people. You're all thinking of autocorrect. There it is. The poem is called Battles with Autocorrect, and we're going to start with JS, followed by Emily. Okay, just to say anything about autocorrect. Battles with autocorrect. Colonial didact, red line, lasso round the neck of immigrant thought stream, changing animal to animal. Pearls grew feral, hurled priceless heirlooms on the page. Kajal, Kajal, Kajal turned to cajole as a woman tried to woo her lover with wordless lamp black eyes. Cher, Shair, Cher sat in a chair because what's poetry if not fair picked up language seated at a feasting table? Okay, JS followed by Emily. Any thought on autocorrect in relation to the possibilities, generative possibilities of week 9, liberatory possibilities of week 9?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was thinking about is the way that autocorrect, and I'm thinking particularly about autocorrect and its function in texting right now, but the way that it reveals how or like common ways that we type or and one thing I'm thinking about in particular is already in the vein of nonsense where if you're writing like with a certain number of H's, it'll sort of turn, for instance, I might type in 5 H's, but then apparently I usually type in 8 or something and it jumps to
it remembers
that. Yeah.
you. Okay.
Or with LOL and it'll put some extra L's on the end or something. I don't know. I guess that from there, I mean, to me, it always just feels somewhat limiting. I'm like, I want the typos where I want the typos, or again with.
So you want to control your typos?
I do, but then when I'm writing.
How old-fashioned?
Yeah, but then when I'm writing a cover letter and then autocorrect doesn't actually work, and I go in and find a nad instead of an and. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like autocorrect entrenches us more. I don't think it's quite. Yeah, I don't know. It's code. And I guess one more thing that I'm thinking about is I was recently...
It's more deterministic.
It is more deterministic.
But that's the spirit of this conversation was the opposite
I know.
of code determining everything, but more like, oh, that error has possibilities. Joan Rotalick has a book called Errata Suite. And the suite begins with 5 wheat. And it's a really good poem about mistakes. Anyway. Thank you, JS. Get back to those cover letters. Are you trying to find a job? Is that what's happening? Yeah. Okay. By the way, to the 77,000 people who are enrolled in ModPo, a small fraction are watching this, but many will watch the recording. JS Wu, WU, is looking for a job. So please write in. And Gabby, too, actually. Right? Didn't we have this conversation years ago when you were applying for grad schools? I was like, take him.
Yeah, who knows?
And it worked out.
Yeah, maybe that was why.
The people at Chicago were listening.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So Emily, followed by Gabby. Quickly on autocorrect.
Yeah. I would bet that for many, if not most people, the most mortifying errors that you make in writing are the errors sort of forced on you by autocorrect, which is interesting, that the mandate to use English correctly, which is enforced by the Apple company or whatever, ends up producing more errors, or it makes it more difficult for you to express what you actually want to, which feels very ModPo, that the sort of dictates of grammar syntax just end up estranging you from your own intended meaning rather than helping you articulate it.
I like that. This afternoon, or this morning, before we were going to talk about Hart Crane in Poem Talk, I went to ChatGPT, which I use occasionally to see if I can get some information. And, then I go...
For what?
Well,
people
for instance...
use it like Google.
Yeah, I use it like Google.
I don't, but people
No, is there, when I trying to recruit people to talk about Hart Crane, for Poem Talk, I went months ago saying, are there any Philadelphia area poets who care about Hart Crane? And I got
wow.
And actually Chip Delaney came up. So, so it's not that bad. But the point is I put in, are there any recordings of sound recordings of Hart Crane? Well, the answer is no, but ChatGPT said there are recordings of Hart Crane reading his own poems. Next sentence was, there are no recordings of Hart Crane reading his own poems. And the one after that was, if you are trying to search for Hart Crane's recordings, you are likely to get someone else reading Hart Crane's poems. Among the people who read Hart Crane's poems, and I was looking at this thing like, this is really interesting. This piece of shit is really interesting. Anyway, we're turning to Gabby, followed by Dave.
Autocorrect. An old classmate of mine in a Charles Bernstein class wrote in quotes, book in quotes, that was just autocorrect errors in their respective suggestions. This is Dylan Hansen Fliedner, and one of this is for
Dylan,
Charles's old
filmmaker
reading that has a W at the beginning. Reading experiments.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What else do I have about autocorrect? Once I called an editor Dr. Puberty because her name was autocorrected, though I spelled it right.
You mean Dear Dr. Puberty?
Dear Dr. Puberty.
I really need to see you next week.
Yeah, like you know, please accept my article or whatever. Anyways, those are my thoughts on autocorrect.
Okay, that's really good. I like it. They're very autocorrected. Dave, followed by Sophia.
I'm thinking about the autocorrect that corrects your grammar, and I think that can be fun because it's more fun to break the rules knowingly and intentionally. And sometimes you're not even aware you're breaking rules, and this can point out that, oh, you're breaking a rule, and you can take some enjoyment in that.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I mean, there are some people out there watching this thinking, boy, the ModPo discourse has really degenerated from the good old days of Dickinson and Whitman. And now they're talking about autocorrect. But I say nay, nay, nay. I think that Emily Dickinson would have been really interested. I mean, Emily Dickinson is like a font of autocorrect. Just look at those envelopes. I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. Variant spellings, dashes. Okay, come on. We're going back to our origins. Okay, Sophia followed by Anna.
Well, in Al's spirit, I think I'll ballyhoo autocorrect as the
you use
generative.
Ballyhoo as a verb.
Isn't it a verb?
Yes, that's how. It's not really. That's how I use it.
Okay, well,
I've influenced you all. Okay. Even Gabby
in Al's
uses
spirit.
That. Yeah, I don't know.
You do that like
I just
at
trust
the University of Chicago. You talk to your egg-heady colleagues
it's
at
noun?
the U of C. Like, I'm ballyhooing this. It's generally a noun.
Okay, well, anyway.
You're doing great.
I think, recently I used an error that I sent a professor of mine a message, and it autocorrected dear to dead. And I was talking about someone.
Dead professor.
And no. I was messaging a professor, and I said a dear friend of mine, but it autocorrected to dead.
I'm
which
so
was
sorry
unfortunately
to hear about your loss.
No, unfortunately it was like right, and and my professor responded thinking that I intended to say dead, and I
talking
used
about Jamie.
Yes, and I used that like really unfortunate exposure of what happened to create this piece where I went to an algorithm and I generated all of these kinds of ways that I could have autocorrect change the phrase dear best friend. And I created like this really long like list of things, and it turned into an art piece that was actually shown in a gallery.
So this whole thing,
but there like that, there was an intervention required, right? Like I had to intervene with this autocorrect to make it something generative. But it ultimately like wound up being generative.
Yeah.
So that's my ballyhoo for autocorrect.
This whole thing started with Sophia's poem, ended up with Sophia actually having generated a poem from an error. I think this is great. It has a roundness to it. Go to Allie, followed by Erica. And then John.
I'm thinking about like the relationship between like the ease of the relationship between attention and convenience and how we use language.
Yeah.
And how I'm just thinking about
Did you say attention and convenience? Attention and convenience.
And convenience,
yes.
Yeah. And like just thinking about autocorrect and texting, like I remember just absolutely hating T9 back in like Motorola days. God, just thinking it was like the worst thing ever. Some people don't even know what I'm talking about.
I do.
But like autocorrect has gotten so good that you can kind of just let your thumbs do whatever.
Yeah.
While you're crossing the street and like not really pay attention to what you're writing.
Pay attention to the bus that's bearing down on you rather than the thumbs on the keyboard.
I didn't hear what you
Never
said.
mind. I'm an idiot.
But like, I feel like the only times that I've actually kind of enjoyed a kind of autocorrect mistake that I've made, in the same manner that like week 9 types of aleatory experiments or just like openness like thrills me almost all the time, is when I'm actually paying attention to what I'm writing. And I think that kind of gets back to what Sophia was just saying. It's like, it's not like autocorrect. It's like, what kind of attention are you paying after the fact? But I do think we should be suspicious of programming that like lets us pay less attention to what we're saying.
I think this is what you're saying is very Cagean and Ritalikian. You know, poethics is really not about the ease of errors, but about the difficulty and the struggle of making errors. Okay, Erica, followed by John. Autocorrect.
I love autocorrect. I like to try and, I mean, I don't know if it's the same as autocorrect, but you know, the predictive text where you're like starting to type something and then it like gives you like 4 or 5 options of what it thinks the word will become. I try and keep lists of those because I find them to be totally fascinating and really fun to do things with.
It's also cool to use $5 words or words that the predictive algorithm wouldn't expect you to use. And so I use, ballyhoo, yeah, you're right. I use oleaginous, one of my favorite adjectives, and I also use precipitous all the time. And it really doesn't know what to do with that. It can't predict anything.
Aleatory, it doesn't predict for.
It won't predict. Now there is a meta situation. John, followed by Jason. John, autocorrect. So you're writing a lot of legal text.
Autocorrect has just been a source of many apologies to clients that I've written emails to and just used the wrong word. Sorry, really struggling with autocorrect. The one that seems to have come along recently is autocomplete. So like when I wrote you an email, Al, saying I'll be in town, I don't think I wrote the whole sentence. I hit tab at some point because it pretty much, you're writing and it's black, and then there's sort of these grade words that it's sort of filling in.
That's right.
So, I mean, that also is kind of the ultimate in unoriginality, right? It's an algorithm that looks at what all of humanity is likely to say to complete that sentence.
Kind of makes you want to say, Al, I'm going to go to, Timbuktu, not town.
Right.
And then, of course, I would think you're in Timbuktu, and I wouldn't know that you were coming tonight.
You could, and you could take that as sort of an exercise in writing poetry. I mean, I was thinking you could actually start a series of sentences and see how autocomplete wanted to finish them.
Yes.
Right? I don't know, you could call the poem like "You Complete Me" or something. But it would, it would be an interesting way.
You are so close to retirement. You have no clue how close to retirement you are, man.
Here, I'm already gone. That would be an interesting writing exercise, I think.
Yeah, lovely, John. Thank you. Jason, autocorrect.
Hey, let's see. I think that I like my typos, and but I also like the wildness of what autocorrect generates. One thing I'm thinking is that, like, as far as I understand the logic of, say, AI would, I think, describe the technology that is behind autocorrect. And so I'm thinking back to what John was talking about earlier in terms of AI, in terms of autocorrect, and in terms of kind of chance itself. And the thing is what makes, like, we can have this conversation about autocorrect right now because it's not good enough yet. Like, it's not been perfected to the point. And what would it mean, though, to be perfected? Like, to be perfected, like, for us not to have the kind of serendipitous, insane chance autocorrect glitches where it's not the word we intended, at least means that the autocorrect hasn't completely reached the capacity of sync. I feel like what I'm going to say is going to have some sort of implication and importance, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'll just keep saying it. That the autocorrect to not have any funny errors or generative errors. And what do we mean by an autocorrect error? It's where it's not what we intended to say. It's not like what we had in our mind has not expressed itself in some kind of it's come out pure in some sort of way, like when we vomit.
I really like. I want to turn to final words in a second, but I really like. I have a variation on that, but I really like the idea that Jason is heading toward, which is something that Jack Kerouac was kind of hoping would happen to his head. So we're on the same wavelength, Jason, about this.
I'm thinking of Jack Kerouac.
I think that Kerouac sought a kind of cognitive autocorrect that would then produce out of his mouth or in his fingers doing keyboarding on his typewriter that version of auto incorrect that would be just the old angel midnight. And I think free jazz, which was trying to happen at the same time, was kind of trying to think about that sonically. And it goes back to those cats in the 1870s who were interested in the derangement of the senses. What I'd like to do is I'd like to ask a few people to do final words. And so that would be our special guests, Gabby, Anna, and Emily, and maybe a couple others. But I'd also like to invite the people who are still with us, who are doing the chat. I'd like you guys, I hope you can hear me, I know there's a little delay in this, but I'd like you to do your final thoughts, your final words for tonight, and Sophia will read them off as we're going along. So folks on the chat, start doing your final thoughts. I want to remind everybody that we have a webcast for... Oh, wow. We have a webcast for week 10 next Wednesday at noon, and then we have our final words webcast the next Monday, which is actually week 11, and that'll be the very last day. So we have, our last office hours coming up in week 10, and also Gabby is going to be doing an office hour tomorrow at 11
a.m.
Philadelphia time.
Yes,
and that's a change, and I've made the change, and there's a Zoom link at Gabby's thread subforum for that. Kate is also not going to be doing an office hour tomorrow, I suspect. So I will put out a note to everybody just telling you again, this is your chance. And Jason's got a super duper special office hour from 8 p.m. till forever on Friday evening. So definitely do them. And soon we will be talking about Slow-Po. So Slow-Po are mini courses that we offer in the off season through the winter and spring. And then we're pretty quiet in the summer. And then at 2024, we'll be back again for another 10-week session. We call it the Symposium Mode. And we're really excited about all that. Okay, so are people starting to do final words? Do you want to quote a few, or should we go to Gabby first?
Well, Aiden Hunt, our friend.
Aiden Hunt, hi Aiden.
Said, final thoughts. This has been a fun week so far. I'm planning to come to the Final Words webcast.
Oh, nice.
And Suzanne said this was a fairly random webcast, which I would agree with. But Aiden Hunt responded, I kind of liked that.
Yes. Yes. We're a little nuts right now, and it's okay. You should go. Everybody should go back, Gabby, to the recording of the week 9, might have been week 10, 2016, right after the Trump election. And you really have to watch that. It was week 9. You really right. Talk about random. And
I think like Emily and I are sitting next to each other just looking like drained. Like I think it was a good webcast. Right. Like I agree with your recommendation, but that was like one of the worst days.
Very meaningful webcast, and we were all kind of stunned. Anyway, it was okay. Gabby, and while after Gabby, then Sophia will quote some more final thoughts from the chat.
Sure. Practical effects first, and then speculative ones. Yes, I have my office hours tomorrow at 11, which is different than the schedule says, just to keep in mind if you want to come, and we can talk about things that are bugging or exciting you, or we can talk about things that are bugging and exciting me. I've been happy to be here. That's another thing. And then the speculative thing. Okay, so chance-based poetics and different kinds of conceptualism were like very useful for me as kind of starting out writing. They kind of gave me a lot of permission. They were very useful. And they felt like they kind of unbuilt this idea of genius that as like a kid, I thought was like the bee's knees. I was like, yes, genius. That's so interesting. And then I kind of lost it and was like, no. Anyways, I say all that to say that I feel a little bit uninspired by like uncreative works more recently. I feel like a little bit like it's not the thing that's getting me going recently. And I think, I don't know, so I'm speculating about if there's a way of having my cake and eating it too, insofar as breaking out of a notion of genius and all the baggage that brings with it. And also being interested in something that isn't this kind of chance-based operation, is interested in a kind of, let's put it in some big scare quotes, creativity. Yeah. And I say that all knowing that anytime I get stuck writing, I go to like the Bernadette experiments. They're just a really easy way to kill writer's block. So I say this with a lot of love for this, but I also want to say that I'm kind of interested in what could happen in that other direction.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a way of perhaps mis-summarizing what you said is that there are experimentalisms and radicalisms and difference all across the modes.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm actually going to say another thing, which is like, I think actually that like for us talking about aleatory work, like we're talking about some real kind of standout examples from a moment at which also historically it was very new. But like, I think about like erasure, for example, is a form that is like a dime a dozen. Like there's literally an erasure project coming out every week. And it starts to get like, I start to get a little like, about the lineages of some of these things that were once felt like super revolutionary and now feel to me a little like tired. And I'm kind of interested in like how to break through it, but keeping a lot of its kind of aesthetic principles, which I think are right, and ethical principles.
Good. Okay. No. So you're saying that the idea is great, but
it's gone
like all good ideas, it has to be varied.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Sophia, final thoughts in the chat. How are they doing? Are they actually doing it?
Yeah. So Laura Littman said, I loved week 9. Real, in scare quotes, writing is much more similar to this kind of creation than most of us want to admit. Darlene said, this was a fabulous webcast. So in the moment, which I would agree with Darlene. Yeah. And you can move on.
Okay, cool. We're going to turn to Emily for a final thought, and I'm going to ask John to be next, if you're willing.
Yeah.
Emily, can I just say, it is such a delight to see you.
Oh, right back at you, Al.
It's been really too long. Okay?
I know.
We shouldn't just meet up at the occasional webcast.
At the table, yeah. Yeah, well, I'll find some more webcast times that are in line with my teacher bedtime. And that was sort of what I was thinking for a lot of our webcast, it's an interesting sort of week to parachute in on as an English teacher because, these days we are always thinking about automatic or automated writing in the form of ChatGPT and all the sort of AI stuff. And it's really interesting to think about the way our poets in this week are challenging traditional modes of authorship and how that is so different from the way that ChatGPT or Microsoft or whatever are challenging those ideas of authorship. And I think reading a sort of AI-generated essay, specifically, an essay generated by children for purposes of academic dishonesty.
Do you get a lot of that?
Oh, ow.
How do you discover it? Easily?
Yeah, it's painful, but not surprising, maybe, to say that your average teenage boy isn't as good at writing an essay as a robot. Like, the robot's a bit better, so you can be like, oh, you don't know what...
What's the best bad excuse you've gotten from a kid you caught?
Oh, they just fold like a road map as soon as you confront them. They're just,
they
no
fold
chance.
like a what?
A road map? Just like, whoop.
Boy, you are so old-fashioned. You're using an analogy.
I know.
You are too much.
Yeah. But, and it's just crushing, and it's a weird thing in like teacher world. A lot of STEM dorks think that it's like fine that the AI apocalypse is here and people don't need to be literate or read or write anymore, because they don't seem to understand that writing is continuous with thinking. It's not just this like mechanical process which produces an essay. On reading those essays and trying to convey to people, students and adults alike, why AI is not a substitute for basic literacy skills. And what I come back to is those essays are rote and unoriginal by design, right? They're sort of scraping the internet for prior knowledge and puking it out in a sort of just rehashed form. And so you think about that sort of form of automatic writing and how all it does is reinforce the status quo and discourage surprise and discourage creative accident. And it is hopeful.
Ironic,
right? And it is sort of heartening to think that we had these poets, writing decades ago who did see a more energizing possibility for this form of writing, a way of sort of breaking down the sort of writerly ego in ways which challenged the sort of status quo and produced new forms of knowledge.
That's so smart. And Cage and McClough would say, like, we're challenging authorship. I didn't write that in the sense that Robert Frost wrote Mending Wall. I had a lot of help. And that is, for Cage in particular, that was a way of checking his ego. But what you're describing is you get to use someone else's work and it inflates your ego. And that's exactly the opposite of what Cage was hoping for. And that is going to militarize the language rather than demilitarize it. Sophia, before we turn to John for a final thought, any new final thoughts?
Ray said,
Ray?
My computer ate my homework in response to
It's not Ray. Is that our Ray?
Not Maxwell. No,
another Ray.
Another
okay.
Ray.
Hi, other Ray.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We can have many Rays. It's most of the conversation right now is in response to Emily's very
Emily
interesting,
stole the
very
show
funny.
once again.
Okay. She stole the show.
Okay, that's what she does.
That's what I'm here for.
You should.
This is why we only have her once a year. John, final thought, and then we'll turn to Anna.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this kind of poetry could be a really useful reservoir as poets start to tackle AI. AI, this kind of poetry is where you fix a rule and it generates the poem. AI is where the rule gets smart and starts to change itself. And so I don't know how it'll look. I don't think any of us does when poets start to deal with AI, but it's almost meta, in that you're not setting a rule, you're dealing with a rule that's constantly changing. And I think people will probably come back to these poets and use them as sort of foundation.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much. Anna, love you, miss you. It's so good to see you as part of this. It just feels so natural that you're here. Smushy
No, it's been
emotion.
too long. I miss you all too.
Yeah. Do you have a final thought?
I think that what's great about this work and what always feels great about this work is that it's always, always, always good practice to be sort of estranged from, or maybe deranged from, the ways in which you typically use language. And, maybe this like moment of AI and like the STEM invasion mechanization of like language and language processes is a great moment to be thinking about the ways in which we use language intentionally and unintentionally, the ways in which language intentionally and unintentionally uses us, the ways in which language is creative in and of itself. And I think anytime that you can be given an opportunity to sort of like interrogate your own sort of like thought processes or writing processes, that's good practice, good
Wonderful.
human practice.
Wonderful. 3 cheers to the teacher people who are, working through this stuff. Dave, always great to see you. Jason, you are on fire tonight. Thank you for everything, always, and have fun with the marathon office hour. Yep. Erica, lots of love. Hope to see you in person soon. Allie, feel better. We miss you here. Sophia, you're the best. Nobody's better.
Thanks.
Emily, say hi to your mom. Come see us more often. Her mom was my son's Latin teacher and hers.
I know.
Together. They sat next to each other. They threw spitballs.
The lore.
Yeah.
I've heard the lore.
JS, fantastic. You're part of the family. Don't ever leave. Gabby, this was a fun day.
Yeah, this is nice.
This was a really fun day. John, thank you for visiting from Singapore. Zach, Chris, you guys are amazing. Mandana, so glad you called. Okay, everybody, we'll see you in a week for week 10, and Erica Baum will be joining us, and lots more to say between now and then final words a week from Monday at noon. All right, good night, everybody.